guys aren't speaking, if you would mind just muting, just so we can ensure that everybody's having a good experience and can hear what Hannah and I are doing. So the purpose of today really is to talk to you guys, weirdly, about marketing for learning. But essentially, marketing is quite a large world. And so we've taken the time to kind of distill down some of the key elements or skill sets that sit within marketing that we feel L&D really do need, and skills gaps that we see kind of time and time again with our clients, or areas that I guess Hannah and I feel you would all benefit from starting to develop in order to be the best marketers possible. So a bit about us. Hopefully you guys know us if you signed up for this webinar. But if you don't, that's our fetching faces. I think you can see the likeness here. That's a great photo. Hannah and I have both been marketers in the L&D space for a long time, been marketers for over a decade each. We've been running Mass for about 4 years now as well. And, we've won quite a lot of awards for the work that we've done with our clients, on both the campaign perspective and also the business model in terms of what we're doing here. So what I'm trying to do is give you some social proof that actually we know our stuff, we know what we're talking about, and we're really, really passionate about sharing our wisdom with the community in things like this today. So we're really going to try and give you guys as much information as possible as to help you get started and start to think about where you can upskill yourself in marketing. So we got a lot of challenges in L&D. We're grappling with a lot of different issues at the moment. We're still contending with a highly complex level of change, even off the back of COVID. There's always something going on. A lot of our clients are now moving to skills-based organizations, which obviously kind of throws a spanner in the works in terms of what we do from a learning strategy perspective. But some of the other things that we always continue to grapple with is actually impacting performance, changing people's behavior, proving that the learning that people did actually did something, rather than just saying, oh yeah, people did it, they liked it, they attended this course, well, cool. Just because they did something doesn't mean they learned anything. So we continue to have issues with evidencing impact. We also continue to struggle with tech innovations, keeping pace. I think we love the trends such as AI that's coming out, but how we adopt that, how we bring that into our organization, how it becomes valuable and how it becomes meaningful continues to be a problem for us. Learner engagement, I've been in this industry a decade. It's been a constant narrative and that hasn't changed. That's why I launched Mass, because I thought surely marketing will help with this engagement lark. But we really still don't quite understand why people are engaging with our learning opportunities and what we can actually do to get them to engage. I'll get on to that a little bit further as to, why I think marketing might be the key to that. We also have a really shallow understanding of our audiences, our learners. We have a clear understanding of what they might need from a training perspective, what they need to do their roles, how to progress their roles, but we don't understand them as people. We really don't understand who they are, what motivates them, and indeed how we can do marketing that's effective to them. We therefore obviously cannot prove our value back up to that changing behavior and performance. Most learning functions don't have the data available to actually correlate learning with business performance. It's hard for us to get a seat at the table when we can't prove value. And that's a constant narrative, at least with my clients, Hannah. I don't know if it's the same with yours. Really being able to actually prove that what we're doing is working and it's having an impact is challenging. And finally, establishing a learning culture. A self-driven learning culture is usually the panacea that I see people pursuing. We want our learners to proactively pursue learning. We want them to go to our learning platform of their own volition and devour learning to the heart's content. We want our managers to be proactively sharing learning offerings, and we want that learning to be bedded into our organizational culture. It doesn't happen often, but that's one of the key challenges that we see. And I hate to say it, but I do think that marketing boils down to this, right? So we talk a lot about the challenges that we're trying to solve, But is a lack of awareness the biggest challenge that we have? So quite a few people at the beginning of this year, the beginning of the financial year, had their budgets cut. The business is looking more closely at them in terms of what they do, their performance, the value piece. And that's maybe happened because they have a poor learning culture. Learning isn't having an impact in the organization. They're not able to articulate or prove value, and there's no real significant shifts in behavior. That's likely because there's a lack of employee engagement. A lot of our organizations that we work with have very low or poor learner engagement. I mean, like sub 10% type thing of active users on their learning platforms, for example. That's probably because there's a very little effort or energy going into how we communicate with our people, how we actually share and engage with them, how we influence their behavior when it comes to learning. And on top of that, because you're not communicating with them, they don't really know that learning exists. And so, I often say when we have an engagement problem, I think we have more of an awareness problem. So the reality is a lot of this boils down to marketing. People can't do what they don't know about. So we need to focus on how we can raise awareness. And of course, that boils down to marketing. That's why you guys are here. But the reality is L&D is very poorly skilled in marketing and communications. This is not an area that we have a breadth and depth of skill set in. It's quite a new concept. This has been consistently reiterated with research that sits across our industry. So this was the Mind Tools for Business report this year. Not even 30% of stage 1 and 2 L&D teams. So that's the level of maturity. So those are the least mature learning functions, have marketing and communication skill sets. Even worse for community engagement, somewhere between 10 and 20%. So even the highest performing teams still don't really have these skill sets. That's compounded by the research that the LPI repeatedly does with the capability map. This, if you're not familiar with it, is essentially 24 identified skills that are needed in our industry, and they are mapped in terms of our capability or our grasp on them from our strengths here on this side. Content design, hey, we're great at use and articulate storyline. Not so good at the marketing and communications. That is repeatedly down at the bottom. It's a deep sadness for Hannah and I, and we're working hard to try and change that for you guys. Because the reality is marketing has an impact on a lot of different aspects. It isn't just about raising awareness. It boosts engagement. It builds trust with your audiences. It improves the efficacy of learning over time because people are actually starting to use it. Over time, of course, as well, it can start to change learning cultures and establish your learning brand's presence. So it isn't just as simple as saying, oh, I'm going to raise awareness. This has multiple applications and multiple layers in terms of how it can actually improve the visibility of your learning function and drive better impact for the learning products that you already have in your business. So it's almost making more of what you've got. All you've got to do is upskill yourself. And that's, I guess, where this webinar comes in, because where do you start? Marketing is complex. There is a lot of different, if I think about the skills that I might use in a week as a marketer, it's quite complex and there's a lot out there. So these are my mine and Ham's hand-picked 8 essential skills that every L&D'er needs. We're going to talk to you guys about mindset, how to be more commercially focused, copywriting, design, so a little bit more tactical, data interpretation, but also some more mindset type skills around curiosity and resilience. And one of my favorites, business partnering, which I think is really widely overlooked. So what we're going to do now is we're going to dig into those a little bit. We're going to talk to you a little bit about each of these skills, what we think they're about, and how you can start to hone them. And over to you.
Wonderful. Thanks, Ash. So first things first, mindset. What on earth does it mean to have a marketing mindset? Because marketing is the thing, isn't it? We see marketing. So what is a marketing mindset? Well, for L&Ders, it's really about treating your learners like humans. I'm really against the phrase learners. We've spoken about that a lot throughout all of the comms we've put out there. They're not learners, they're humans. They're human beings. So we should treat them as such. When we're talking to them, They don't want just a list of features. They're not a robot that's just going to go, cool, it's a bite-sized learning course, I must take it. We need to be thinking about the benefits of our learning. We are in a field that what we do has such a wide impact on people's lives and their livelihoods, and not just their time at your organization, but any future job they might have. That's a big thing. And we need to be talking about those benefits if we want these people to really engage with what we're doing. But to do that and to get butts moving, we need to understand them really deeply. I don't care if your learner is a marketing manager or a head of finance or, I don't know, a sales manager. Can't think of any other job titles. We are all so much more than our job titles. We are individuals, we are humans, and you must get to know your audience at that deeper level. You need to know what gets them out of bed in the morning, what drives them, what motivates them, what makes them keep coming back to work time and time again. What is it that gets them out of bed and moving and learning? Because by understanding this and knowing their wants, their needs, their fears, their pain points, you're going to be able to communicate with them in such a better way. It's your job. If you're in charge of marketing for learning in your organization, it is your job to influence and persuade your people to learn. Nobody wakes up in the morning and goes, oh, I really want to do a GDPR course today. Nobody does that, ever. We need to stop assuming people do. It's our job to influence people to actually want to get involved with our learning. And to do that, we need to answer the one question that if you've ever listened to the Marketing for Learning podcast, you would have heard us bang on about time and time again, the what's in it for me. What is your audience getting from getting involved? The what's in it for me will absolutely never, ever be because their boss wants them to, because you want them to, because they're ticking a tick box of some sort, health and safety box. You got a new LMS and it spent loads of money on it, so they must go and learn from it. No. They're business mandates. They're things that the business cares about. What your audience cares about is themselves. We are all inherently really selfish. We only care about ourselves, and even more so when it comes to learning. So what are they going to get from getting involved with your learning intervention? Answer that question and always champion them. Always have them at the heart of everything you do. And you'll be adopting that marketing mindset that's going to change everything you do in L&D.
Yeah, and just to add on that, the job title thing, because it's something we come across a lot, and it's always a blocker when we talk about personas in the masterclass. Like, why can't I just use people's job titles? Job titles are really great for developing learning strategies. People often need to understand how to do their role, but if they've been doing that for a while, they probably think that they're pretty proficient and aren't interested in stuff to develop themselves in their current role. But they're also likely interested in how to ascend their career or make horizontal moves elsewhere in the organization. So job titles are great for learning strategy and helping you identify how best to develop your people, but they don't give you any insights when it comes to influence and persuasion. And so adopting that marketing mindset, thinking about that, what's in it for me, leaving the job titles in your learning strategy and thinking about your people as human beings is really, really where it comes in. And that feeds quite, go ahead, Han.
Sorry, Ash, not to go off into a tangent on our first skill, but that also feeds into the fact that we absolutely do not recommend that you're marketing your learning offering on a program by program basis. It's a trap we see a lot of people fall into. You need to be marketing learning. You need to be wanting people, you need to dig into those intrinsic motivations. If you're marketing on a program by program basis, I absolutely understand some programs will be only relevant for certain job titles, but we need to be thinking bigger picture when we're marketing our learning.
Yeah, and if you have to, make sure that you have developed personas that help you with positioning. That's not just, hey, you're a leader, we got a leadership program that you're probably really going to want to do. Like, that's just not going to persuade people. So you got to get back to that benefits piece, right?
Yeah.
So I think, again, that marketing mindset really feeds in nicely into the next skill, which is a bit of a random one and certainly not specific to marketing. But I implore you to channel my toddler. Why? What's that? Why is that there? What is that? Who's there? What is that? Why is that like that? Ask these questions incessantly. Be annoying. I've been very disliked in places I've worked at times because I'm annoyingly inquisitive, to the point where it comes across as somewhat difficult and obtuse, shall we say. But curiosity is a really important quality of a marketer because it really allows us to develop a certain way of working, I think. We should be obsessed with our audience. We should be desperate to understand who they are and learn more about them, not just through developing personas, doing value prop canvases, but also through testing, experimentation with copywriting, things like that. And we'll touch on some of this in the data analytics piece. But we should really be asking these questions. Why would someone want to engage with my learning program? But why wouldn't they? Asking these questions, these why questions, are really, really important. One of the best marketers I know are like this. I don't know if you have had the same experience, Han, but a lot of people can turn their hand to marketing, but the ones that are the cut above the rest are the ones that are always asking these questions. They're willing to be quite adaptable. They're trying to learn as much as they can as quickly as possible. And they're often very humble in the fact that they don't know everything, and they know where to go to learn or get more information. So, whether that be, handy dandy old Google to try and get some information, or turning to peers or the likes of us if you're looking for marketing for learning stuff. But being curious is a really, really important quality because it helps with that innovation. And especially at this stage in your marketing for learning journey where you're not, maybe you're on the fence, maybe some of you aren't, like Paula, I know you're convert. But there might be other people here who are a bit more curious about whether this is a thing that is a thing. Is it something that's actually going to do anything for my organization and my learning function? And curiosity, I think, just helps you to be more open and crack down into these mental silos that a lot of L&Ders have built up, and how things are the way they should be and why we do what we do. And we see this a lot where if people go through processes with us through workshops and such, like, eventually that gets broken down. So starting to foster this more curiosity of, okay, well, why do we do this way? That's a question you should ask yourself. Like, what if you do have personas, why do these personas exist? Why did we create them in the first place? Are they relevant for what we're trying to achieve now? Are they going to help us achieve our goals? Curiosity helps with innovation. It helps you actually be more creative and try different things. Marketers are not afraid to fail, and curiosity, I think, helps with that. So again, tinkering is probably a word I would use. Me and Hannah experiment all the time, whether that's just with the aesthetic of an email we might send or the visuals we use, down to, doing different types of webinars and topics, just to, get an idea of what our audience likes more or less, to allow us to do more of what people like and less of what they don't. So make sure you're starting to think about how you can be more curious. And I've got some tips and some ideas here for you. So again, obsess about your learners. Don't go put their shoes on and do a walk in them, but you get what I'm saying. Like, really do try to think like them. Try to think, actually, I see a lot where my clients are like, yeah, but people want to learn, and they don't. My experience doing this lot of discovery sessions is you do have usually a small group of people who are quite engaged with the learning offering. But most people do not feel, for whatever reason, that they can prioritize learning. And so understanding that and getting into their mindset, being curious about why they behave the way that they do at work, why they think the way that they do, is really, really important. Ask more questions, be inquisitive to the point where it's annoying. I dare you. Be annoying. It's fun.
Us marketers are the most annoying people in the world.
Oh, yeah, I know. Except for us, we're just like cool.
Of course. I thought you were going to say except for Max. You said that your son was the most annoying person in the world.
God love him. But again, things like this, embracing failure, seeing it as an essential part of what we do as marketers, trying to learn why things failed. I always say I love to fail because it helps me understand more about what didn't work, which is usually the bigger piece of the pie anyway. So, trying to just be more open to the experience, being more inquisitive, listening more and asking questions to try and get different answers and help you shift your own perspective is a really, really critical part of doing marketing, I think, whether that is, just writing an email. Why am I writing this? What's the purpose of this? Who am I writing it for? If you can't answer those questions, then don't write the freaking email, because no one is going to read it. If you don't know why you're writing it, they don't know why they should read it. It's that simple. So make sure you're fostering that curiosity piece, because it's something that I think is again, like I said, not unique to marketing, but definitely the marketers that I know that are excellent are very much in this mindset of, being curious, and painfully so at times. So skill number 3, Han.
And that actually, again, links really, really nicely onto skill number 3. And that's business partnering. If you think of the marketers in your organization, I can hazard a guess that they are friends with people in loads of different teams. Marketers always network. They go out and they're collaborating with other people in the business. I know myself, when I was in a bigger organization of just me and Ash, I promise we are friends, but we are one team. I would have friends that were in finance, in IT, in learning design, in all these different functions of the business, because it was really, really important for me not to just be friends with everyone, because I'm a social being, but also to really understand how the organization worked, how things married up, how one hiccup in one team would have an effect on somebody else, one success would have an effect somewhere else as well. And the same goes for when I wanted to do something. So if I was launching a new campaign or a new initiative or something like that, I would then have people that were willing to support and advocate for me, because I'd spent the time getting to know them, supporting them, and advocating for them. All too often in L&D, we work in this little silo. We sit by ourselves. And we're like, I'm doing learning and I'm only thinking about learning and I don't need to talk to anyone else because they're just my learners. If you break out of those barriers, you'll realize that actually these other people within the organization could give you a lot of value and could be your friends and your advocates too. The amount of times we've gone through the Marketing for L&D masterclass and people have got to the session we're talking about Canva on, and then suddenly realize their marketing team's already using this phenomenal tool that could really help them, but they didn't know about it because they didn't talk to anyone in marketing, is beyond me. It shocks me every time. How do we not talk and collaborate with one another? And I think it really is one of the most important parts of adopting a marketing mindset and doing marketing for learning. Because we can go to somebody and say, hey, can you do this thing for me? So you might go to internal comms, and say, can you send this email out for me? I need people to engage with this new learning we've launched, this new program we've launched. Maybe you've got a face-to-face classroom course coming up. You can go to them and say that, but why are they going to prioritize you? They don't know what you're about. They don't know your strategy. They don't know your objectives. So instead of doing that, why not have regular check-ins with them? Align your strategies. See what they've got on. See what you've got coming up. See how the two of you can work together. Again, instead of battling with HR or talent to get your learner data, why not build a collaborative focus group to share data? Because you'll have data that's also valuable to them and insights that's valuable to them, and vice versa. So rather than just doing it at the point of need, create a working group, collaborate with them properly, rather than just ad hoc when we need something, calling someone up. Build collaboration into your function. And instead of having to fight to prove your value, prove your return on investment, retain your budget, get to know your senior leaders. Talk to them. Make sure they know your name and you know theirs. Honestly, understand what's in it for them. Why do they want learning to work? And then you can put your marketing hat on and tell them a narrative that works for both parties. It's no good going to someone just when you need something. You need to build long-lasting relationships with these individuals that are beyond just being, hey, can you do this for me? You need people that are going to help you and build the relationship long term. But that also does mean giving back. I'll scratch your back if you scratch mine kind of mindset. You need to help them as much as you are asking them to help you. This is one of the biggest qualities of a marketer that does their job incredibly well. It increases visibility, it increases brand awareness, and it shows that you're valuing the business over all else. Because curious marketers and people that network go hand in hand. If you're asking why a million times, you're going to start networking around your business. So that's a really important skill that I might be asking you to invest quite a bit of time in, but it's something that will come back tenfold after you've done that investment.
Awesome. All right. So we're nearly halfway through. Wow. So commercially focused. So remember when I said about L&D proving their value, losing budgets, that very top end of the upside down triangle root cause slide I showed you guys earlier. It never fails to astonish me, and especially when I first started working in this industry, that we are allowed in L&D to spend a lot of, I was going to say something different, they'll spend an awful lot of money without really having to evidence to the business that there's an impact. Whereas when I worked as a marketer, if I was spending budget, you can bet your bottom dollar my CEO or my CMO or whatever, whoever was higher than me, would be asking questions. Well, all right, but you spent 50 grand on this event. What did it get us back? How many leads did that get us? How many customers did that get us? So in everything that marketers do, we're expected to actually evidence that we get some return on investment. We don't have to in L&D. And so because of that, we're not really often very commercially focused. We're not really actually looking at that kind of return in that way. You know, we look at softer things like learning hours and bums on seats and happy sheets. And, you know, these things don't give the business substantial evidence that learning and development is something that A, it should invest in, B, that it should retain, and C, that it should give even more money to. You know, if you want to increase your budgets, if you're only going to be able to evidence what people are doing around learning hours, visits to the LMS and smile sheets, you're going to have a tough time arguing why you should get some more budget. But why are we not? I've said that wrong, but why aren't we commercially focused then? What's going on there? Sorry, I couldn't resist the Halloween pun. So there are a lot of reasons, in my opinion, why this exists. And some of this is just legacy stuff that happens. And, you know, it's really down to us. If we want to become a new learning function, we've got to disrupt. We've got to break down some of this pre-established ways of being and ways of working in the organization. In many cases, the business still sees L&D as a cost center and is often seen as a very transactional function, i.e., people, stakeholders from across the organization come to L&D saying, I need some new product training for my sales team on X, Y, and Z. Can you make it for me? How long is it going to be? Oh, it needs to be a 30-minute module on this, whatever. We pop it out. And then next thing you know, we don't even really know if that's what it's needed. No, this is going down a slightly different wormhole, but you know, we're just very much have this transactional relationship with the organization, which is why things like business partnering can start to help. This is why things like performance consulting can be really, really practical for us in terms of actually starting to understand the impact of our learning and why we're doing learning. Is that, again, being curious. Why do we even have that? Why does that exist? Is anybody using it? What's the purpose of it? What's the outcome of that? Let's just be painfully inquisitive. Again, we're not very commercially focused because we don't have a lot of data. A lot of times it's really, really hard to get data. So again, becoming friends with the business, making it easier for data sharing across those system silos that you have. This is a really important part of actually evidencing value and linking your marketing to your learning, to your performance outcomes in that order. You need those data systems to talk together. So befriending those who hold the data, who have the keys, is really, really important. We're still very much a compliance powerhouse in some cases. Some of our clients still maybe deliver, I don't know, maybe 60% at least of their learning is compliance, which, does have an impact on learner sentiment. Not as much as I initially thought, I must admit. Most employees that I've spoke to do understand the difference between compliance, i.e. do this or you're, the business can't employ you. And, hey, go and develop yourself and enrich your life. And, finally, really, if no one's asking for it, we're not going to do it, are we? We don't not going to go spend our time chasing data that we don't necessarily need. But being commercially focused is not just let's look at ROI all the time. There's a few components. Business partnering is on there again because it is a really important part of thinking more like a marketer. It is actually building those relationships to enable you to evidence what you're doing, prove value, prove ROI. Another key thing is actually aligning our learning strategies and then our marketing strategies with business goals. It's something I don't always see happening. Why are we doing what we're doing? What is the business trying to achieve? And what does our learning strategy look like as a consequence of that? Sometimes we can get a little bit carried away with, well, actually, our LMS is out of date. We need to get an LXP because everyone says an LXP is really cool now. So we definitely need that. And we need X, Y, or Z. Well, hold on. Again, why? Why do we need a new system? Is that what people want? Is the one we've got not working? Do we need to do more curation and things, improve the learner experience in other ways instead of just throwing the baby out with the bathwater? So make sure that you're really focusing on business goals in no matter what you're doing. If it's not going to benefit the business, ultimately, don't do it. But just make sure that the learner is at the heart of everything you do. So we can't use business goals to influence people, but business goals are what drive us as a learning function ultimately, or at least they should be. And again, zooming out, Hannah already mentioned we do not recommend doing small granular campaigns that are just programmatic, i.e. we have a new X, Y, or Z, go and do it. We often see those as very quick kill campaigns that last a couple of weeks at best. So for those that are listening, I did inverted commas in campaigns. Much more, have a bigger vision about this. What's our kind of overarching strategy? What are we trying to achieve for the year? What product releases do we know are coming? Okay, we have had a leadership program in the works for 2 years. It's going to be ready in June. How do we build a campaign around that lasts 3 to 6 months at least, in amongst everything else that we're doing? And again, be more performance oriented. Think about whether what you're being asked to do actually benefits the business. Is it something that the business needs? Ask the question. Why are you asking me to make this? Is there a better way that we could do this? Can we think of some more creative ways to actually help support your people in developing the knowledge that they need to do their job better? So rather than just a single person or a stakeholder coming and saying, oh, we need this. Again, it's that curiosity piece, guys. You'll notice a lot of these overlap and interweave for a reason, because this is what it is to be a marketer. All these things kind of fit together really nicely, which is, I guess, why we've kind of handpicked them, I suppose.
Yeah. And touching on that last one there, Ash, I had a discovery call this morning, and it was so interesting that somebody had the revelation that just because a stakeholder comes to you and says something is very, very, very important doesn't mean it's business critical, doesn't mean it's in line with the business goals. So I think we also need to be confident and inquisitive enough to say, where's this coming from?
Mm-hmm.
Why is this request come to me? And kind of follow the route back and work out how business critical it actually is for us.
Yeah, absolutely. Just because it's L&D, not A&E. There are no emergencies, last I checked. So, assuming with marketing, no one's going to die. So we can take the time to ask these questions and at least have the gumption to push back. Totally agree.
And now let's move on to something that's a bit more tactical, and that's copywriting. I believe if you're looking for a tactical skill that's going to make you a better marketer and help you do marketing for learning in your organization, copywriting is where you should start. Because we're all writing all the time, whether we're writing emails to our colleagues, whether we're writing emails to a wider audience to get them involved with learning, whether we're writing course descriptions. Any kind of comms typically has some form of copywriting in it. So when you are writing your copy, the first thing you have to do is keep your audience at the heart. You need to think about the what's in it for me, because those two things help you create copy that's actually going to get people moving. It's actually going to take people from knowing about your learning and being like, yeah, that's another thing on my to-do list, to actually getting involved with your learning. Because when you're writing a piece of copy, whether again, say if it's a description on your LMS or if it's an email you're sending to somebody, it is a conversation between you and the person reading it. So you're telling a story, you're selling a narrative. So you need to think about the outcomes and the values of it if you want to get people to really, really engage with what you're asking them to do. Remember, our one aim in marketing is to influence and persuade people, and the same goes for your learning. And just to prove how important this is, we've got a bit of an example for you. I want you to spend a couple of minutes or a couple of seconds reading this email and let me know in the chat panel what you think of this email. Helps if I have the chat panel up when I'm asking people to do that. What do you all think of this email? It's so long. Is the first response. Yep. The what's in it for me is too far down. What's the point? Yeah, I think most of the responses are going to be like that. I will. Oh, there we go.
Before I get halfway through.
James has just said what I was about to convey.
All about we. Yes, Paula.
Absolutely. Just fluff. Lots of waffle.
And cream and syrup.
I love that, Connor. I must admit, we used this example in our Learning Live presentation, didn't we, Ash?
Yeah.
And even after that presentation, I hadn't read the full email. I just couldn't get through it. Every time I'd get bored after the first paragraph. So that's a fairly typical email. I think if we're all really, really honest with ourselves, we've all probably sent an email that's that long-winded, me-focused, doesn't really answer the what's in it for me. We can do better. So let's look at how we can improve that. What do you think of this email? What are your initial thoughts here, guys? Any comments?
Framing is better, talks to an individual person, like the key info is highlighted, draws us in with a question so you can skim read.
Nice rhythm. I think this one's
for you.
What were you? Yeah, absolutely. And what you're asking for is a lot clearer. Absolutely. And it's so human. I giggle at the point of she's nice, we promise, every time I read this email. It's very human, it's very natural. It feels like a conversation. This is why copywriting is so important when it comes to marketing for learning, because both of those emails were asking for the exact same thing from the target audience, but one of them you're going to delete before even finishing reading it probably, and the other one you're going to act on. Both asking for the same thing. So copy can make or break your marketing for learning initiatives. But when you're writing copy, your job isn't just to write words down on a bit of paper. It's your job to know your audience so well that you understand the situation they're in, how they're feeling, what they'd like to be, what they'd like to do, and how your solution, so in all of our examples, it will be how our learning can help them get to that ideal self. So when you're writing copy next time, just like Ash said with Arts in the Wise, make sure when you read it back, you can answer the what's in it for me, that it's not going to take your people 5 years to read it, that they are going to be truly engaged and encouraged to take action with your copy.
Yeah, and another good way to test your copy is using the so what test. So, if you read something, a sentence, an email, a post, whatever, and you kind of think, so what, like I think Connor said, what's the point? The so what test, if you can't answer so what, or why, the copy is purposeless and it's going to come across as a little bit aimless, like that first email.
Yeah. And also Billy's just asked in the chat panel if we've got any resources or sites that can help with copywriting. It's not so much for the so what test, but I absolutely swear by the Hemingway editor. If you feel like you have an email like that first one that's very long-winded and just loads of junk in it, Hemingway will tell you that it's a load of junk and highlight all of your sentences in red for you. So top tip, I swear by Hemingway. It's free and it's just a web browser. So try that.
Yeah, it just helps kind of like simplify your copy, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But obviously no copy, most copy doesn't stand in isolation. Usually copywriting comes hand in hand with design. Hannah's already mentioned Canva. We love Canva. They don't pay us to say that. They probably should. But imagery is really important, and the way that we look, the way that we come across, the visual language that we use is also telling a story. And so it's all good and well honing in on our copywriting skills, but if we don't have complementary visuals that actually are effective, it can disengage too. So this is the difference between a dull, boring email and the newsletters that we send out. Something that's, don't get me wrong, plain text emails have their place, but this isn't eye-catching. It's not going to get people's attention, is it? It's the if we're looking to influence and persuade, this isn't the way to accomplish that. Good design should help you further your message. It's part of that storytelling piece. It's compounding what you're already saying. It's continuing with that story. It can also really help to establish and further your learning brand. So, again, I don't think, or at least in my experience, that design is thought about a lot. Oh, we need a banner for that email, we'll just use that one. There's not a huge amount of thought that goes into actually what's the message that image conveys. Is it complementary to what I'm saying in the body of my email, or just, is it really boring old stock photography that people have seen 1,000 times? Is it from your company asset library that's getting used over and over again? People will get bored, they'll get fatigued, they'll tune out. Imagery can help drive emotional connections, make better first impressions, which again can help with establishing that brand piece, help you get wider engagement with your comms. I can't think of any brand in the world that's well liked that doesn't have good design sat behind it, and ultimately make you look a little bit better, right? If you've got good design, it helps people build an idea about the quality of your learning. So, it isn't just a case of pretty pictures. These are really, really important aspects. Because actually, this is an artist's impression of what your learners could be doing if you start doing design like a marketer. They're going to start paying attention to all that lovely comms that you're doing and ignoring all the noise. We know learners are drowning in content and comms. We get told that time and time again by both them and L&D. How do you cut through the noise? Design, copywriting, positioning, walking in their shoes, really important stuff.
Absolutely. And how do we know that any of that worked? The only way we can know it works is by looking at the data and interpreting that data. How do you know if performance or behavior has been changed by the learning, or if somebody has just completed the learning? Again, I was having this conversation just this morning on a discovery session with an organization that was still so set on, oh, but this person has completed this many modules. Cool, but they can't do the job in action. So we need to look at our data and interpret it. We can't just say, yep, here's the data. So how are you using data to analyze your efforts in L&D? Data helps us do better with our learning. It's understanding what works and what doesn't, and then iterating and improving that over time. And when it comes to marketing for learning, we're investing a hell of a lot of time in creating new assets, trying new things, being more creative with our communications. I can't tell you what will work for your organization. Not even if you came and paid us, I would never confidently say, this communication method will definitely work for your organization. I can give it a good guess based on over 10 years in marketing, but you only know by trying and testing. And you have to check the data to know what worked and what didn't. Marketers use data in so many different ways. We use data to understand our audiences more deeply. We use it to determine what channels, maybe what tone of voice, what imagery, what colors. Marketers are huge fans of A/B testing. And that's when we change just one small thing and see if it makes a difference. That could be a subject line, a color of a button, and so on. We have to look at the data to know what worked. We need to understand the behaviors of our audiences. We need to understand what they're doing at certain points, and data will tell us that. Data will paint a picture for us of what our audiences are doing and how we can best influence it. Data interpretation will help you be more confident in the choices you are making and be more confident in the fact you are always putting your target audience first. You have to make sure that anything you're doing in L&D is championing that end learner, and data will help you do that. And like I've already said, it helps us iterate. It helps us go, okay, that's where we are today. I'm going to tweak this one thing. I'm going to improve it, and I'm going to see how that changes. That's the only way we can continue to improve in anything we're doing. And that goes for both your learning and your marketing for learning.
Yes, and I think that 1% improvement is that kind of mantra for me, or I guess the athlete's mindset that there's always room for improvement. And there's marketing functions that feel like they know their audiences incredibly well, but they'll still test because we're not very good at predicting what people are going to do. People are not very good at predicting their own behaviors, in all honesty. There's been quite a lot of research around that piece alone. So we need data to back up what we're doing. We need to be able to not only ensure that we're where our audiences want us to be, saying what they want to hear, but that we're able to actually adapt to potential changes in the future as well. And that carries me on nicely to our final skill set, which is resilience. Again, so much change in the marketing industry, even in just the past 20 years with the advent of the internet. Marketing went overnight from paper-based advertising, billboards, television and radio, to a completely different world of social media, marketing, advertising, SEO, and the such like. L&D is no different. We have a lot of change in our function, in our organization, tech evolutions, business mandates change quickly. I know a mercurial CEO will often change direction of a ship rather swiftly, and that means that we've got to be resilient. So we've got to be prepared to fail. We've got to be prepared to adapt, and we've got to be prepared to change because the world is changing whether we like it or not. This, of course, is not just a marketing skill, much like curiosity, but it is one that you do need to think about developing, being more proactive instead of just reacting to change. Some of the other qualities that we've talked about today around business partnering, for example, that is a proactive quality that actually you're building relationships outside of need to actually ensure that, ensure the safety, security, and value of your function. Preempting change, maybe using data to do so, but actually deepening your understanding of what's going to happen and maybe why. Again, staying more adaptable, developing future skills. What else are we going to need as a learning function, not just now, but when the next 1, 3, 5 years? What, as a learning professional, whether you stay in your current role or go somewhere else, what skills are you going to need to ensure that you succeed in your careers? Marketing, in my opinion, is absolutely one of them, but there are things like performance consulting, even, how we use AI, for example, data analytics, really, really important skill sets that we need to start developing in ourselves. Focusing on scalability, sustainability, how can we be more evergreen? How can we scale? How can we grow? How can we remain relevant? And I think one of the biggest ones for me is kind of leaving the old ways of doing things a bit in the dust. Things have changed a lot, and we're almost still trying to roll out curricula-based learning offerings in a very modern digital world. And the two things just don't marry up anymore. They're not aligned with what our audiences want and need. And, we're going to get left in the dust if we aren't working hard to stay more resilient. So we've got to be embracing change. Some of the qualities of resilience that I think and qualities that I would love to see in a marketer, being more strategic, taking ownership, maybe trying some stuff and apologizing for it instead of asking for permission. Being a bit more disruptive, being comfortable with being uncomfortable. Again, that curiosity piece, being hungry for knowledge, wanting to develop yourself. These are all qualities that a marketer has. And some of these, don't get me wrong, already exist in learning and development, folk. I'm not here saying that our industry is wildly bereft of any of this. But this is what a marketer harnesses every day in order to get that 1% better, to evolve and iterate what they're doing. And so that is our 8 skills that we believe every L&Der needs. There's just one final thought from us. If you guys like what you've heard, we do have a marketing masterclass which touches on some of this and a lot more in terms of actually how to become a marketer, how to think like a marketer, and how to do this marketing lock. It is transformative for those that attend. Genuinely, everyone who joins just has an absolutely incredible time. You get a lot of one-on-one time with Hannah or myself, and it's all done in 6 magical weeks, which is, if you're serious about developing skills in marketing for learning, this is the only course in the world that will actually help you do that. There's plenty of marketing courses out there, of course, but this is the only one that's specifically designed to support learning functions. I'm conscious we've got just a little bit of time. I was hoping we'd actually have a little bit more time for questions, if I'm honest. But does anybody have any questions?
You mentioned that as L&D marketers, we should avoid marketing program by program, but focus more on marketing learning. I'm interested to know more about this. Is there a podcast I can listen to, please?
I'm actually certain there is a Don't Do Program-Based Learning podcast episode that I maybe ranted on. Do you want to explain that a bit and I'll dig it out, Han?
Absolutely. When we're trying to get people involved with the concept of learning in organizations, it's so much more than, hey, go and do this copywriting course. It's about what they're going to get at the end of it. None of you would be here right now if you didn't think that adopting these marketing skills was going to help you long term in some way or another. It might be because we're in such a lovely profession that you want to help the people in your organization more. Maybe it's that actually, if I'm the one that's the marketer, I can develop my career. I might get a pay rise. I might get a new job role. I might get a promotion. All of this stuff comes into it when we're deciding whether we want to learn or not. When we're marketing based on a program, we fall into a trap based on, you've got to do this course for this reason. And it's very one way. It's very push. There's not much interaction there that's going to get people really wanting to learn. So what we think you should do as L&D professionals wanting to adopt marketing is take much more of that holistic approach. Get people more involved with why they should want to learn. What is it about learning that's going to help develop their career? What's it going to give them? How's it going to make them feel? That kind of thing. That's how you're going to get lifelong learners. That's how you're going to get people that go, oh, I want to learn about this, and go out and search for it. If we keep just pushing the programs, we're not going to instill that curiosity in our audience.
Yeah, and I think there's a point where eventually you can do like product focused marketing, which is essentially what a program, right? You're focusing on marketing one specific product. But essentially what you're saying, Han, is you've got to warm up your audience before
Absolutely.
they'll listen to you talk on about your product. So, we need to get that positioning piece right first. We really need to think about actually, who are these people and what are their motivators? Because if we don't do that, and again, it is just here's a thing, go and do it, which is what we always see, then it's just not going to it's not going to have that impact really. So
Yeah, absolutely. It's brand marketing versus product marketing. It's why we all sit there and watch like the Coca-Cola adverts that actually have nothing to do with Coke other than the fact they've probably got red and black in them.
yep.
It's raising awareness,
Yeah.
and that's
Or
what
that
we're trying
McDonald's
to do.
one where they just do like the raised eyebrows and stuff. Yeah. So we've had Emma Coughlin has asked, is there a podcast on your own experience of your biggest challenges and accepting that setbacks is part of the process and how you pushed through? I think that might be another
I was
podcast
about to say
episode.
there isn't, but there will be soon. Thank you.
Thank you, Emma. We will make a note of that and we will definitely record that as an episode. Kimberly said you have to listen to the Marketing for Learning podcast. I'm on episode 8 and learning so much. You're very welcome, Kim. Diet Coke break.
Sorry, Connor's just getting me laughing here. I'm emotionally invested in the meerkats because of those adverts, and I don't even own a car.
Well, this is exactly it. And, stuff we didn't talk about today is like emotional drivers and leveraging people's emotions. And that's the most effective marketing campaigns trigger emotions. So,
Absolutely.
yeah, I bet you have. Do you have any of the stuffed animals, Connor? All of them. He hasn't said that. I'm putting words in his mouth.
Oh, I can see his face. I think he has.
Fabulous. Well, does anybody have any other questions? Because we are at time. So
Wonderful. Thank you all so much for joining us today. We've really, really appreciated your company. And as I said at the start, this will be on the podcast and on our YouTube channel very, very soon.
thanks so much, everyone.
Thanks,
Lovely to see
guys.
you. We'll see you again soon.
Bye.
Bye.